There are events that unravel slowly, like threads pulled from an old sweater, and then there are moments that explode so violently they shred truth, silence, and sanity all at once. Yi Menglong's death belonged to the second category, catastrophic, instant, and drenched in mystery that refused to settle. People didn't just leave the apartment that night. They fled. Bolted. Rushed down the hallway like the walls themselves had learned how to scream. And until now, no one understood why. But the truth, twisted, chilling, electrifying, begins inside that apartment, seconds after Yi Menglong collapsed. The apartment was too quiet. That was the first strange thing. Even the hum of the refrigerator seemed to hold its breath, and the fluorescent light above the sink flickered like it didn't want to illuminate what had happened inside those walls. Yi Menglong lay on the floor, eyes half open, a glass shattered beside him, its fragments glinting like tiny knives scattered across the tiles. The room smelled faintly of cheap perfume and cold metal, and the curtains swayed though the windows were shut tight. But the strangest part wasn't the silence. It wasn't the shattered glass. It wasn't even the position of Yi Menglong's body. It was what happened in the 10 seconds that followed. A phone rang. Not his. Not anyone's in the room. A phone no one recognized. It came from behind the bookshelf, hidden, muted, programmed to ring only once. And that one ring changed everything. One of the guests, an older man with trembling hands, found it first. He reached behind the dusty shelf and pulled out a sleek, unmarked phone. The screen lit up with a message that chilled him to the core. 3 words. Nothing more. They're watching now. The room froze. One guest whispered, "Who?" Another whispered, "Why?" But no one had the courage to say the answer forming silently in every mind. Because they all knew Yi Menglong wasn't supposed to die that night. Not here. Not like this. And definitely not in front of them. Someone stuttered, "Is this a setup?" Another replied, "We shouldn't be here, none of us should." The youngest woman in the room, hair still pinned from the party, eyes wide as panic, pressed herself against the wall as if afraid it might swallow her whole. "That message," she whispered. "It means they know who's in this apartment." Everyone felt a shock run through their veins. Because they could only mean one group. The same shadows connected to the van Yi Menglong had witnessed earlier. The same symbol inked on the pursuer's wrist. The same invisible network behind the 17-person list. The same eyes that monitored anyone who stepped too close to the forbidden truth. Yi Menglong saw something he wasn't supposed to see. And now he was dead. And they were all inside the room with him. Someone knocked over a table. Another backed into the lamp, causing it to crash to the floor. The group, 6 people total, began talking all at once, voices rising like a flock of frightened birds. "We need to go now. Don't touch the body. What if they're already outside? Someone wipe the doorknob. If they know we were here." Then the lights went out. Not dimmed. Not flickered. Snapped off in a darkness so dense it punched the breath out of their lungs. A woman screamed. Someone else cursed. And somewhere near the window, something, no one knew what, moved. A thud. A breath. A whisper. Then the window latch clicked. Every heart stopped. Moonlight seeped through the curtains for the first time, revealing a figure standing by the balcony. Not a guest. Not a neighbor. Not anyone they recognized. A figure dressed entirely in black, face hidden beneath a hood, hands gloved, body unmoving, watching them with a silence that suffocated the room. One of the men whispered, voice trembling, "Is that one of them?" No answer. The figure slowly lifted a finger not toward them, but toward Yi Menglong's body, as if pointing out the truth they were too terrified to face. They weren't witnesses. They were liabilities. Someone whispered a prayer. Another whispered a curse. The figure stepped forward. And the entire room exploded into chaos. Chairs toppled. Glass shattered again. A shoe was lost. Someone twisted their ankle. Someone else slammed their shoulder into the doorframe so hard they cried out, but no one stopped. No one even tried. They ran. Bodies moved faster than minds. Panic replaced thought. Fear replaced logic. "Run," someone screamed. "Go. Go. Go." They spilled into the hallway, 6 shadows fleeing a bigger shadow, legs shaking, breaths ragged, feet slapping the floor in frantic rhythm. The elevator was too risky. The hallway too open. So they ran for the stairwell. The crash of their footsteps echoed like gunshots down the concrete steps. Behind them, they heard the apartment door creak open again. The figure was following. Neighbors later said it sounded like a stampede, like a herd escaping a predator. Doors cracked open as people peeked out and saw terror carved into the fleeing group's faces. Not guilt. Not shock. Pure devouring fear. One neighbor swore she heard someone shout, "Delete everything, delete it." Another said she saw a woman shaking so violently she could barely hold her phone, whispering, "If we don't leave now, none of us leave ever." Stories spread within minutes, each more fevered than the last, until the entire building whispered the same thing. Something unholy was inside that apartment. And whatever it wanted, it wasn't finished yet. They say a hallway remembers everything, every footstep, every breath, every truth too dangerous to speak aloud. But the hallway on the 12th floor, the one where Yi Menglong's final minutes unfolded, felt like it was trembling with secrets. Not shaking from movement, but humming with a pressure that didn't belong to the living. People always ask, why did everyone rush out of the apartment so fast? But the real question should have been, what did they hear before they ran? Because the moment Menglong's body hit the floor, the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't a sound, not exactly. It was a sensation, something unseen pressing its cold palm against every door, urging, warning, commanding, leave. Now. And no one who felt it ever dared admit how real it was. Inside the apartment, even the kitchen clock seemed to defy the moment. Its ticking stopped, refusing to move forward, as if time itself recoiled from whatever had just happened. The air felt thick and metallic, charged like the sky before a thunderstorm, but darker, denser, like the apartment had become a vacuum for fear. A woman in 12C had been washing dishes when she froze, hands trembling under the water. She later claimed she heard only a thud, but neighbors remember her bursting out barefoot, eyes wide, panting like she had outrun death itself. What she didn't confess was the second sound she heard before fleeing, a slow dragging, heavy, deliberate something being pulled across the floor on the other side of the wall. Not footsteps. Not furniture. Something heavier. Across the hall, an elderly man cracked his door open when he heard raised voices. He took one look into the dimness of Menglong's doorway, slammed his door shut so fast the frame shook, and pressed his back against it like he was holding something back. When he later whispered about the moment, he didn't describe a person. He didn't describe a scene. He simply said, what stood behind him, wasn't supposed to be there, and refused to elaborate. But none of that made it into the official report. The calm of the hallway shattered when a scream ripped through the air. Not Menglong's. Someone else's. Someone who had seen something impossible. The scream was raw, jagged, something that didn't just break the silence but clawed through it. That scream became the trigger. The call. The spark. Doors flew open. Voices collided. A wave of bodies surged out as if escaping burning walls. Except there was no fire. Not one visible flame. Only the kind of heat that lives behind widened eyes. Someone ran out clutching a phone, breath coming in frantic bursts. Instead of calling for help, they flung the phone across the hallway like they were trying to separate themselves from whatever they'd recorded, whatever reflection stared back at them seconds before. Another man came barreling out with his arms over his head, not to shield from falling objects but from the feeling that something was hovering too close. Something unseen but unmistakably there. And strangest of all, no one looked back. Not a single person. Not even by reflex. They ran with their heads turned forward, eyes locked straight ahead, as if looking back would solidify whatever horror had brushed against their senses. As if eye contact could make it real. Later, security footage showed the evacuation didn't happen gradually. It didn't ripple or grow. It happened in a single burst. A synchronized explosion of panic. Dozens of bodies spilling into the hallway at the exact same second, as if everyone inside shared the same terrifying thought at the same moment. Like birds scattering from a predator they never saw but felt. The footage caught something even more unsettling. A flicker. A blur. A dark streak on the left side of the frame that didn't match any human movement, shadow, or person. Some dismissed it as a glitch. Others tried to blame the fluorescent lighting. But those who were in the hallway that night, they refused to watch the footage at all. They didn't want to compare what they sensed with what the camera captured. When questioned afterward, the witnesses' responses were fragmented, clipped, trembling at the edges. It wasn't safe. I felt something wrong. It was like pressure. It wasn't human. But they all used the same haunting phrasing even if they didn't realize it. Something was wrong in that apartment. Not someone. Something. Officials tried to frame the panic as shock. A natural response to tragedy. But there was nothing natural about the way the residents moved. Nothing normal about the fear that made them abandon belongings, slam doors, leave shoes behind, or flee without even thinking to call emergency services. They didn't run from the incident. They ran from its aftermath. From the echo of something they couldn't name. And the few who lingered for even a heartbeat longer claimed they saw the lights inside the apartment pulse, just once, like a living heartbeat in the walls. A steady thump of something the building wasn't built to contain. What they didn't know was that their panicked flight wasn't random. It was the first clue. The first ripple in a pool of truth that authorities would try and fail to silence. Because people don't run like that from a simple tragedy. They run from revelation. From danger. From truth. And somewhere in that trembling hallway, beneath the echo of their footsteps, something still whispers the moment everything changed.